Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Another quick game of Interplanetary I Spy going on here, and today we're doing another kind of crime scene investigation kind of style video of a particular mound and collection of things in an image taken by the Spirit rover, which has actually been conked out on Mars for quite some time now. It's been a few years now. But this was brought to my attention by this image by Neil Spence, otherwise known as Terraform Mars, who does lots of gigapans and images. And there's this very strange looking rock here, if it is a rock, which looks like an arm. Now, it looks straight away as if it's got a hand on it, but that's not a hand, it's not attached. There's a rock behind it. As you can see here, from a slightly different angle, this rock behind is not joined, that's a separate thing. But this is very odd, and it looks like an arm, and I thought, what could that be? So what I did, I looked up this set of images from the Spirit, which is not the rover I normally do on Mars. I normally do curiosity and opportunity images, but this was interesting. So I got the page up here, which is this one. As you can see, this is from the Spirit, all raw images, and it's Sol 692. And here's the particular image that I'm going to be showing you today of a ridgeline. How high is this ridgeline? Probably not that high, probably 15 feet or something like that. Not particularly high, maybe less, somewhere between 10 and 20 feet, I would say. And we've got a collection of rocks, some of which are hollow, and there's some rather strange things here. If you want to download these, as with all my videos, if you want to find any of the images, go to the description below, and there's always a link to the original images from the NASA website or ESA website, whatever. They'll always be there. Right, now the first thing we've got is here. I'm just going to show you that straight away. We've got this thing here, okay? And it's what looks like a statue head. You've got eyebrows here, eyes, a nose here, and a mouth. It's very crude. It's very wide. In fact, it probably comes out wider, but we've got a rock in front of it here, and another one in front of it here. But it's really sort of a funny shape, this one. Okay, there's that there. What we have here is a hollow-looking rock here. There's another one here. These may actually be entrances. We show the enhancements, and then I'll show you where to look and how it all kind of fits together in a minute. There's that thing I just showed you. Here's the raw, completely raw clip on the left here, and the enhanced clip on the right. Simple as that, really. It's very strange in shape. It's very sort of almost rectangular, but it's kind of broken on the edges here. So this looks like it may have been part of a relief carving or a statue, perhaps part connected to a wall or building or something like that. Who knows exactly? I don't know exactly, of course, but it certainly is a statue. You can clearly see that it has quasi sort of human facial features here, the nose coming down like this, and the other eye there. But it's pretty crude. It's pretty crude, and it's probably heavily eroded, maybe millions of years old. If you look really carefully, if I zoom in, you can actually see a couple of teeth here in the mouth. You've got to brighten it up a bit to see that. Let me go a bit brighter, actually, very quickly. Okay. Yeah, you could just about make them out. There's one there, maybe another one over here. Okay. So, is it actually a specimen? No, probably not. It's a very odd shape. Some of the skulls I have found are very odd and elongated, but this is very wide. A different style, I would say, to many of the skulls and carvings I've found, but similarly crude, I would say. So it's not beyond the bounds of reasonable exploration to state that this is actually a statue, because I found lots of very strange. Some of them look very comical, some of them look very serious, some of them look quite scary, but they are often quite extreme in shape and exaggerated, as if almost like a cartoon caricature. Okay. Now, next to this, on the ridge here, on the mound, there's another thing here. and we have an actual skull. Now, where is it? It's just here, down here. There it is. In fact, you can see that it's a skull here without doing anything to the image. You've got an eye socket here, another one here, a nose, lower jaw here coming round, and we've got teeth detail in there. I don't know if you can see that, but if you play with the contrast on the image, and the skull comes up like this, okay? This is a fairly typical of many of the skulls I've found on Mars. This, of course, is the Spirit rover, and is thousands of miles away from the Curiosity rover. But I have found remains and skulls in every set of images, pretty much from each of the rovers and landers, recent ones especially, going right back as far as Viking 1. So all of the images show skulls and carvings and objects on the ground, but especially the Curiosity rover, because it's just taken a lot more images. The Opportunity also, but the Spirit, which is the one that landed with Opportunity, also shows them, and there are quite a few of them. But because I haven't looked through so many images, I haven't found so many of these, okay? So there we are. So that's where to look. There's also this thing here, which I'm going to show you now. Now, this is really odd, and I really don't know what to make of it. But perhaps some of you might be able to help me with that. I don't know. Let me show you that skull that I just pointed out. There it is. There's the raw clip. You can see it pretty clearly in the raw clip here. You do need to brighten it up, and you can see those eye sockets there, 2 eye sockets. There's even eye detail there. So this is mummified rather than just a skull. There is a little bit of flesh left on it, like many of them have. The conditions on Mars are very cold and dry, so things mummify and last for many, many thousands of years before completely rotting away, if they ever do rot away, because I haven't seen much evidence of them rotting away. So there we are. There's the nose coming like that, and we can see teeth here. I haven't enhanced this much. I don't enhance my images very much, as you can see. There's the teeth, there's the jaw, because I prefer them to be left very similar to the original, so that you can compare them and see that I haven't tampered with the images much at all, just enhance what's there. I do like to keep them as near to the originals as possible, only brightening them up and maybe colour correcting them enough for you to be able to see them in detail on a mobile device. Okay, there it is. So there's some interesting details there, including some detail here on the side. You've got a cheekbone here, there's another cheekbone here on the other side, but there's something sticking out here. So there seems to be some sort of damage to the bone there, but that's fairly common with these specimens on Mars. A lot of them are in poor shape. This one isn't too bad. And if you look at it in the raw image, you can see that sticking out. So all that's there, all that stuff is sticking out there. But there may be a very faint rock next to it here, which is confusing the outline. This is often the case with these images. Now let me show you the other thing I found, which is here. This is really odd because you have an object here, which is a very odd shape, with an arm coming out of it and coming down to here, like this. You see that? Now I don't know what this is. It looks almost as if this is some kind of carving or head with an eye here. You can see an eye, eyebrows up here, a big nose and a mouth here. There's the nose. There's another eye there. It's very, very strange, and it looks very avant-garde, or what I would call abstract. Okay. Now let me show you the clips I've got in the folder, and I'll show you that I've done some various stages of enhancement with this. So here's the raw clip. You can see that thing hanging down there. Now, is that a limb? And is this some kind of creature, or is it some sort of weird carving? Very, very odd, this, but it is not as strange as some of the things I found. It's very strange, but I have found a lot of very strange things on Mars, especially in Gale Crater, and some of them are even more strange than this. Things like heads on posts and things like that, where you get a little head nailed to a post, like some kind of warning, kind of tribal warning sign or something. And and things that look a bit like totem poles and all sorts of weird things on the ground. So there's some weird stuff going on with their culture here. I think what they would do is bury people in mounds on top of each other from different generations, and whether they were from the same family or tribe, I don't know, but I'll get into more of that in a minute. Let me show you that. Now, let me show you the next one. I've highlighted the arm here, which comes down, and we've got these strange details in here, complex details. Okay, this looks like an elbow, but it kind of looks mechanical. It almost looks a bit like a piece of material that's been twisted up and then draped over the side of it. It's very, very strange. Now let me show you the next one, where I've gone over both of it. I've highlighted both of them now. I'll animate these at the end of the video anyway, so you can see them in sequence. I'll animate these at the end of the video anyway, so you can see them in sequence properly. But you can see these, that eye there. You've got an eye and a mouth. You've got teeth here, and a very strange big nose, but a really weird shaped chin, and this kind of comes right back, and this part is probably joined to it as well, just this bit here. But this thing kind of drapes down like an arm. It's very, very odd, and doesn't make a lot of visual sense to me. But there are plenty of things like that on Mars that don't make a lot of sense initially, and often a year or two later I'll find something similar and then work out what it was later on. And this may be one of those things where it's not immediately obvious what's going on here, but in future finds we may find clues to what's going on here by finding something very similar, but from perhaps a different angle and a bit more detail perhaps. So there we are. Let me show the arm. The arm's really cool. I've got the raw clip of the arm here. Now this is the same ridgeline or mound, but further down near the bottom of the ridge. This slope here, if you follow this slope up, is where those things I just showed you are. And we've got this arm here, but it's not joined to that brighter object behind. It stops here, and it curves round, and looks like an arm. Now, let me show you Neil Spence's clip here. In fact, if you look at this colour one, you can actually tell that this is a different rock behind. It's much brighter, different luminosity, and his, it just looks joined because of the way it is. But when you see the other clip here, like I showed you before, you can tell that it's not actually joined. It's an optical trick where the camera angle makes it look joined, but it's not. So that isn't joined. This is an arm on its own. Now, I think this arm, if it is an arm, could well belong to that statue I just showed you on the ridge near the skull and other things, okay? And what I think it is, it's not immediately obvious when you look at the area. What we have, I did a little gigapan of the area. The ridge we're looking at with the statue and skull on is this one over here. And the rover drove round and then took photographs over here, looking up at this ridge with stuff on it, and I think they're on that ridge line there, or that mound, which I think is a burial mound. A lot of these mounds are burial mounds. They've actually been placed there as a burial site. And what we've got, if we go back to this image here and brighten it up, we've got this ridge here, and we've got these rather interesting holes in these rocks here, like entrances, just here and up here. There's another one. So we've got one here, and there's another one there. It goes in. You can see it going in like that. These look like entrances, or at least small chambers in what was possibly a burial structure. There's another one here, and this one goes in as well. So these are hollowed out. Now, why would that be? Well, it's very much like a crypt, where you would have small wall structures, quite crude wall structures with hollowed out parts, like shells almost, where skulls would have been placed in a crypt. Much like my last video I did about the crypt, this is another crypt, I think. And what we're actually seeing is more of it exposed, and we're seeing some of the structure here, where some of these things were placed, like here and here. You would place a skull there, you would place a skull here, and you would probably place another one up here, inside this one, And there's probably a whole series of these going right through this mound. There may be hundreds, and there may be hundreds of skulls placed in this mound. Okay? Now, unlike some of the dolmens we have on Earth, this could be a huge dolmen with many hundreds of burials, or at least dozens, I would say. And I've got some examples of dolmens here from the Middle East. Here's a single dolmen. Now, this is very similar to some of the mounds we see on Mars. These mounds are probably about 8 or 10 feet wide. Some of them are much, much bigger. This is a single burial. Someone would either be sat or led in this little chamber, and it would just be covered over with rubble and sand into a mound. Okay, that's a dolmen. Now, some of these can be quite a lot more advanced, and we have some like this, where you have the initial burial at the bottom, then another one on top, then it's covered up again, then you have another one on top of that, and it's covered up again, done in layers. Okay, and often you'll see them on the side, and what happens as this erodes away from the top, the ones that are sitting up, like this one, often the ones on the side are buried in a sitting position, like they are in places like Peru, in South America. And often what you get, where the sitting ones are sat up, the soil erodes away, and then the heads appear on the side of the slope, but the rest of it is still covered up. So often you might get a skull on top, which is often the case with mounds that I've shown in Gale Crater as well. You get a skull on top, and then you get a skull on the side looking out, but there's probably multiple burials underneath as well. So this would explain why you often get skulls on top of a mound, and halfway down a mound, and at the bottom of the mound, because we have different burial stages from different times. May have been buried 50 or 60 years apart, who knows, possibly even hundreds. And we have, quite often, we have skulls near the top, middle and bottom, often, on these ridges and mounds in Gale Crater, as well as today near the Spirit rover. Okay, so I hope that it kind of explains it. I will be doing the next video will be about limbs and bodies, because we haven't seen many of those. There are a few examples of legs and arm bones and all sorts of other bones, but not enough to go round. Most of the things we've seen are skulls and heads, either carved or actual skulls or fossilized skulls. And the reason I think a lot of them are missing is basically because rodents and other scavengers may have dragged them away to eat them. Not necessarily rodents, but other scavengers like birds or lizards or whatever have eaten them. They've dragged them away to eat them. The other possibility is that these burial mounds, only the heads were buried, and that they may not have collected all the bones. They may have just put the skulls in the crypt and left the other bones somewhere else. Okay, this is a possibility. So we're still trying to work out exactly what's going on here. We don't know exactly. I'm just presenting the evidence and then trying to come to a conclusion, or a possible conclusion, based on what we've seen so far. Okay, so there we are. Multiple things here, some of it quite weird. Let me show you that on here. I've got this up here. It actually looks better if you see it enlarged like this. So thanks to Neil Spence for this. It's a really cool image. This very interesting. This arm, and is it possible that this arm belongs to one of these statues or something on the mound that I've showed you? Because literally this is only a few feet away. Okay, this is the same area, same set of images, and if I show you the page, this is the one we're looking at here today, this lighter one, and the arm, if you scroll down, the arm is down here somewhere. There it is. There's some different versions of the arm photograph here, and there it is. So we have an arm, we have a possible carved head, and at least one skull, and possibly another one with something draped off the side of it, like another arm or limb or something. Just quickly show them again anyway. I mean, this was really cool, this one, because it's so in your face. It's really quite large. I would say this is probably a couple of, I would say 1 to 2 feet wide. It's quite wide. So this is large. Whereas the other skull that we have is probably more like human size, which is about 8 or 9 inches, but quite elongated and flattened. A lot of them are elongated on Mars, much like the ones in Peru. And it looks like the burial style is similar to some of the Peruvian burials we see, where a bit like we have here, we have some kind of sat up on the side, which is why we see them often sticking out of the sand, because they're in a sitting position, not a lying position. Okay, so that's why I think a lot of these skulls are literally poking out the sand looking at the rover. It's because they're sitting up and the soil's eroded away, showing just the skull at the top. There are loads with just the very top of the forehead showing, which just look like pebbles, and there are some that are a bit further down. So there are different stages of these burials that I've showed before, that we've seen, and many of them are only partially exposed, and we're only seeing the very top part. It's very hot here at the moment, and I'm burning up, so I'm going to call it a day and put the fan back on because it's extremely hot here at the moment. So I hope you're all okay out there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Clip's coming up now.